Brandon Arnold is the Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union, and Anthony Esposito is the CEO and founder of Ascalon 6 Capital. Thank you both for joining us.
How are you?
Great. Brandon, let me start with you. What are your latest thoughts on this? We've got this funding thing behind us, so the president doesn't have to focus on that. But we still get conflicting comments about what's going on in Iran, and that impacts oil.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing these fluctuations certainly in the markets, people responding to almost every word the president says. When he says something positive, markets go up. When he says that there's unfortunate incidents happening there, markets take a turn for the worse. I think we need to be looking at the broad trend line here. And obviously, we're going to see some incredible volatility in markets and oil prices until we reach some sort of resolution. We need to create a situation where ships can pass peacefully through the Strait of Hormuz. Until that happens, and until we have some sort of lasting agreement with the Iranians, there's going to be a tremendous amount of volatility, and there's overall going to be a downward trend line when it comes to our economic performance. So we need to get that done as quickly as we possibly can.
Anthony, speaking of the oil moving through the Strait, that mysterious Iranian present we heard from about the president now being revealed. Apparently, it was 10 oil tankers being allowed to pass through the blocked strait. The Iranians allegedly saying, to show you the fact that we're real and solid and we're there, we're going to let you have 8 boats of oil and they'll sail up tomorrow. And it ended up being 10 boats. That was according to President Trump. It seems there is some movement. I believe, though, that the Iranians are demanding that they get paid for each one that passes by. But would this soothe investor fears when you do start seeing these ships moving?
I think it creates volatility and trading reactions within the market, which is more structural than fear being soothed. These 10 ships moving through, some releases from a strategic petroleum reserve around the world, some changes in taxes. These are all things that are not going to really fix the problem. What's going to fix the problem is a settling down in the Middle East with Iran and the straits being open. There's 20% of crude oil moving through the strait each day. We also have to worry about healing. We have to worry about fertilizer. We have to worry about food. There is a major issue with that lockup, and that needs to be opened up. So while those 10 ships on a reactionary basis, whether it's short covering, derivative trading, creates a positive pop in the market, that's fine. That is not a soothing of fear. We have an issue in Iran. I have full faith in President Trump, but the markets are showing that there is more damage to be done, and then what percentage of that damage is structural is still being assessed.
Hey, I'm glad you brought up, because we focus on gas prices, but you brought up fertilizer. Critical, especially at this stage in the year, for so many people across the country. A lot of ag markets out there. Anthony, Goldman Sachs had a study out, a little worrisome. It said that detailing how the war in Iran could cost the American economy up to 10,000 jobs per month. The losses coming primarily from retail and hospitality industries, where due to rising costs trickling down from the supplier, consumers then are cutting back on vacations and dining and everything else. So when people say the war doesn't prioritize American interests, is that what they mean?
I don't think that no, I don't think that's what we're talking about. The American interest, first and foremost, is to be safe and to remove the #1 state sponsor of terror from the board. And I think that's what we're doing, right? Goldman Sachs, I believe, is referencing GDP reduction and job reduction based on the price of crude, which is a fine methodology, and I appreciate the report. The higher crude goes, the more we see GDP cut, the more we see demand cut, the more we see jobs cut in the U.S. So there is a negative effect to what's going on with the war. I think that we need to determine, to Goldman's point, whether these are structural changes or whether these are speed bumps that will be reduced and removed in a month, a quarter, 2 quarters out, or are we actually changing the structure of markets and pricing for the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months or longer?
So, Brandon, allies across the globe experiencing this, drop-offs in their markets due to President Trump's announcement of a delay in further hostilities. Those leaders are saying in response that they're completely baffled by the mixed signals that are coming out. They're citing the high cost of moving troops in without the intention to use them, we think, and that if he was serious about de-escalation, he would delay the troop deployments. How do you read it?
Well, I think there are certainly some mixed signals here, and I think it really underscores the need to have a more allied front with our allies, a more communicative diplomatic structure here, because certainly if we're leaving them high and dry, I think there are going to be some hard feelings there. And I think one of the reasons that we really need to strengthen those relationships is not just diplomatic, but economic, and making sure that Europe and the rest of the world is heavily economically integrated with us at a time when there are calls to, for instance, scale back U.S. energy exports. I think that would be extremely harmful. Strengthening those ties leads to not only greater economic partnership, but greater partnership on a global basis when it comes to diplomacy and so forth. So making sure we have strong alliances, incredibly important, and we should be making sure that we're active in Brussels and across the globe with our allies on the Iranian front.
Well, yeah, strengthening everything. Thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. Appreciate it. Brandon Arnold and Anthony Esposito.